Hello, welcome along to another episode of Adventures in Pop. This is episode 24. My name's Simon Jacobs. Do subscribe and all those things, and thank you also for stopping by, because I know you're really busy and you've got a lot to do today because we've all been watching a little bit too much football, and real life still has to happen, doesn't it? So anyway, lovely to see you. Today I'm going to be talking about an interesting subject, probably actually quite a big subject, and I may not be able to do justice to it all in one go, but I want to look at collaboration. This is something that comes up quite a lot, for musical artists. I think is about the advantages and disadvantages of working with somebody and how that works. What are the ups and downs of collaborating in your artistic endeavours? The reason this is on my mind is because after about 35 years of collaborating with one person, I've covered that in earlier episodes, but I will just briefly need to talk a little bit about some of the ups and downs of that again today, because just to make sense of it all. Then over the last 4 years, I've had 4 years of mostly entirely solo work where I've just had only myself to answer to, and that's been pleasurable in a different sort of way. But then recently, and kind of by chance really, I don't think this was ever planned, I've started a new kind of collaboration with a different person. It's a little bit, it sounds like, I'm being unfaithful to the first person, but it's not like that. This is music. But I'm now embarking on a new collaboration with a different person, and it's reminding me of all those kind of rules of what's collaboration for? Why do you do it? And what are the advantages? Where are the pitfalls? What's difficult when you're collaborating? What's it all about? So I want to just kind of walk through some of that. And I also want to play you, at the end of this, I'm going to play you just a little bit of a very old song that was the result of collaboration after quite a lot of arguments. And there's a particular bit that I always remember, and we'll come to that song a little bit later on because it's basically quite funny, and all will be explained. So why would you collaborate? Well, let's first of all just think about successful collaborations in history, and there are lots of them, aren't there? If you think about it, Lennon and McCartney, and Elton John and Bernie Taupin. Maybe that's possibly the most successful in terms of the numbers of years that they've been doing what they do. You can think of Ashford Simpson, who wrote things like Ain't No Mountain High Enough, and loads of hits for Aretha Franklin, Marvin Gaye, etc., as well as having hits on their own. There's Benny and Bjorn from Abba. That's a collaboration. They wrote a lot of their stuff together. I don't quite know what the division of labour was there, but they wrote together. I looked at a list the other day of like the top 10 most successful musical partnerships, and in there as well I was very happy to see Nile Rodgers and Bernie Edwards from Chic, who wrote obviously all the Chic hits, but also those great songs for Sister Sledge, Diana Ross, and others. And so they also they were appearing in the kind of all-time top 10 of collaborations. So this is a subject that has been present through the whole of the kind of rock music era. So there we go. There they are. And actually, on a different day, it'd be quite interesting to look at the different ways that those people did collaborate. So Elton John and Bernie Taupin, you probably know this, but what they did was, Bernie would write the lyrics completely separately and send them to Elton John. They were not in the same room as each other. They one didn't need to sit with the other, and Elton John wasn't sitting with Bernie saying, no, I wouldn't write it like that. And Bernie wasn't sitting with Elton saying, no, that's the wrong tune. They had their roles and they stuck to their roles, and boy, what a success that's been. So in the first collaboration that I had, which was the long-lasting one where many songs were written, and even a musical got written, from scratch and recorded, etc. Again, I've covered that earlier, but in that collaboration, basically, it involved the two of us being in the room at the same time and doing everything together. So in other words, we would write the words together. We'd argue about the words together. We'd write the melodies together. We'd think about the chords together. We'd think about the arrangements together. So every aspect of it was a partnership. I think that meant that things were sometimes a bit slower, but it meant that we were both thoroughly involved. We were always 100% committed, both of us, to what we were doing. And so normally we would end up both agreeing that it was a good song, or quite a good song, or not a very good song. I mean, we tended, by the end of it, we tended to have reached a point where we both kind of saw it in roughly the same way. That's quite helpful. But as I say, maybe that's a time-consuming way of doing it. It's less time-consuming to have those roles where one person does one thing and the other person does the other thing, and you don't get in each other's way of doing that. You just accept that's how it's going to be. That's quite different, obviously, from what we did. So why would you collaborate in the first place? What's the point of it? And I think ultimately there is probably just one point of it, which is if you collaborate in songwriting, I think the idea is that you should end up with something that you simply would not have written if you'd done it by yourself. And I think that is the point. The other person, assuming you've got your relationship right, the other person is going to mean that the song, which is not, doesn't belong to one or other of you, that the song becomes something different from what either individual person could have achieved by themselves. And now that may sound really obvious, but actually that's interesting because it involves compromise and not just doing what you would do. It involves listening to the other person and thinking, what is it they're trying to say? What is it they're hearing that I'm not hearing? It involves keeping a very open mind that, however much you love the thing you're doing, you've got to allow the other person to have a stake in it. Otherwise, that's not collaboration. You're just having, it's a little dictatorship, and maybe you're letting the other person, take a little look every now and again. That's not proper collaboration. It's got to feel like a 50-50 enterprise in some way. So it does involve a lot of listening. It involves being quite determined as well, because when you collaborate, things don't always go well. I mean, when you're by yourself and you have a go at writing something and nothing's going on and you're not feeling particularly inspired, that's fine. You just leave it and you forget about it. If you set up a date with a person there and they're with you and you're struggling away with them and it doesn't go well, then I don't know. You might be more likely to think, oh, this is no good. This collaboration is no good at all. We're no good. This person, he, she, doesn't help me at all. I'm better on my own. And actually, I'd say the same. Some determination is needed just to see these things through. So I think it's important to just recognise the fact that it's not all going to just come easy. What else is going on? The other advantages are that you're going to get challenged. And again, I think if that's a sign that the collaboration is a good collaboration, you're going to get challenged. Somebody's going to say to you, no, I just don't hear it like that, or your normal way of doing things doesn't really work for me. Or why don't you try this normal way, my normal way? All of that, I think, is really valuable. I think it helps you learn, it helps you stretch, it helps you grow. And in the case, if I get a little bit more specific, in the case of the person that I'm now working with on a number of songs, so I'll explain what's happened. Basically, we started off with the idea of doing one or maybe two songs, and it's just grown from that. It has sort of organically, blossomed into really quite a number of tracks, and I think we've achieved, how many have we got? About 6 or 7 songs. And it's become a bit of a side project, and the person I'm collaborating with is, well, here's the really important point. The person I'm collaborating with is about 326 years younger than me. So it makes a huge difference. It means that his cultural musical references are completely different from mine. I must appear to him to be very old school, and occasionally he appears to me to be, well, I sometimes don't understand. It's like I'm grappling with a kind of a form of music or a way of writing lyrics or a way of punctuating the lyrics that to me is a bit alien, but all the better for that, because I think it's worthwhile, trying to make sense of it and trying to find a way of working. So that's the other thing. The other person might bring to it a completely different worldview, and that is indeed the case. And I find that pretty exciting. I think that's good. And I guess you're probably going to influence each other to some extent, and that is the case. I mean, one of the things that we have done is to play each other some of the things that we like, some of the music that we listen to, and that tells its own story immediately. So, it's there's a vast difference in our tastes in music, our influences, and as I say, a kind of perspective on the world, as there would be between people with a few years between them. He says, slightly euphemistically. I think when you're collaborating with somebody, I think you're forced to have to kind of expose the strengths and sometimes the weaknesses of your songwriting skills, because when it works best is when one person will have an idea, will share it, put it into words. I think something like this, maybe a bit of melody. The other person then, I think what they're invited to do is to take that idea, not knock it, not say that's actually a load of old nonsense, but to think, okay, how can I build on that? What else? What would I bring to this idea? So it's adding to the idea, not taking it away and starting again. So no, that's a load of rubbish. What about this? So it's not. So you mustn't compete. It's got to be, how do I add onto that? Then so the ball's back in my court. I add something to it. Throw the ball back. You add to it. Backwards and forwards. To me, that is the best way of collaborating. I don't think it always works like that, but when it's working well, that's kind of what it looks like, and it's going backwards and forwards, and all the time it's changing, but it's getting better. It's like better than the sum of its parts and all that. So I guess that leads me to one other really obvious point, and it's kind of there in between the lines of what I have been saying so far, which is, in a really good collaboration, I think you have to leave your ego at the door. You can't be sitting there thinking, my idea is fundamentally much, much better than yours, and actually always will be, because I'm brilliant and you're not so good. Disaster. I mean, obviously you don't want to have that frame of mind anyway, but you're not going to get anything done in a collaboration if you can't put aside, your own strong vision of how it's going to be. If you have very strong visions of how your music should be, don't collaborate. Just do your thing, and that's fine as well. It's not lesser, but it's a different thing. Don't involve another person in just arriving at your idealized musical idea. So don't do that. Don't waste their time. So as I say, there is a point about leaving one's egos out of it and just focusing on what is the best way of approaching this song. Now, the ego thing is very easy to say, it's quite difficult to do, and I think particularly for kind of creative people, I think in music, and probably it's the same right across all of the kind of creative arts, I think we will always believe that our idea is the best idea, and it's almost like we've just got to park that, and let that go, and go with the fact that if you're working with somebody, you must bring them in. Then if after a number of weeks, months, years, you're thinking, in the end, the output of this is less good than what I do by myself, then great, off you go, good luck. But I think you've got to give it a real try before you make those kind of decisions. You've got to give it the best possible shot that you can. Or, as I say, don't collaborate. Just do your thing. So I think it's a really useful way of stretching and learning and doing different things. Because here's the other thing. I think you end up trying some things out on a collaborative piece of work, piece of music in this case, that you probably wouldn't try with your own stuff. I think I am being a little bit more adventurous sometimes when I'm working with another person than I am on my own, and wondering why that is actually, because hopefully I can take some ideas from that and and use it and be bold and adventurous. But it's certainly true, I think, because maybe it's because you feel you've got a 50% stake in it rather than 100% stake. Maybe that gives you a bit of license to play. So that brings me to, that's all I want to cover today, but it brings me to my example, which is absolutely around an arrangement. Now, this is a song that was a collaboration between me and my main collaborator overall. The word collaboration is horrible, isn't it? It does sound like you're doing something with an enemy, and obviously that's not the kind of meaning we want here. But you know what I mean. So we wrote a song. We're going right back to the late 80s here, but it's just funny because I remember this very vividly. Back to the late 80s. We wrote a song called Dance With Me. It was a kind of upbeat, quite dancey song at the end of the 80s. At the same time, we'd been quite influenced, I think, by some of pop music's forays into kind of Spanish music. So what am I thinking? Think about Madonna doing La Isla Bonita, or Pet Shop Boys doing Domino Dancing. They were all kind of playing around with a Spanish feel with some nice, acoustic Spanish guitar and all that kind of stuff. And I think for some reason we decided we wanted some of that. Now, as it turned out, the engineer whose studio we were using, I think it was one of his very, very good friends. They were from Gibraltar, and one of his very good friends could play very good Spanish guitar. And I don't know how it even came about, but this was an argument. And my side of the argument was, don't be ridiculous. We're doing a dance record. You don't just stick on a load of Spanish stroke flamenco guitar in the middle of a dance record. And particularly, you don't do that in a totally random key. What are you thinking? That was me, my partner, saying, no, this is fine. It's going to be fine. This is exactly the right place to do it. It'd be really good. Don't you worry. This was quite an argument. And eventually, the day came when, the man with the Spanish guitar was invited into the studio, and we recorded him completely, on his own, and put it onto the track, a bit of like a segment of Spanish guitar straight onto this dance track with nothing behind it. And I was just like, this is we're just ruining our fantastic record. How wrong could I be? When I look back now, all I want to say is it is the highlight of the song, and I'm going to play you just that little segment of this complete crazy madness, and it's fabulous. Okay, stand by. So you get the feel of the song there. Dance with me now. Hold on to your boots. Now, how lovely to have a bit of live playing of a Spanish guitar in the middle of the track. The fact it sounds so real is because it was real, and it fitted in. It was in a strange key. It was in a different key. I don't know why we went there, but then as you come out of it and go back into those electronic, pulses of back into the dance rhythm and the song that people have started to get to know by the time they get to that point, it just sounds really good. So there is a great example. Obviously there are millions more, but that one, it just caused arguments. I was just, it was very difficult to convince me that was going to be a sensible thing to do. And, as I say, we look back on it now and how we laugh. Because it just sounds good. It's by far the most exciting part of that song. All right. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to do this all again soon because actually next week I am going to have another single out and it's called Interstellar DJ. Yep, Interstellar DJ. That's out next Friday. And before then, I'm going to talk to you about the track and share the video with you, and that'll be in the early part of next week, maybe the mid. Thank you very much indeed. Take care. Enjoy football if that's your thing. Whether you're English or Italian, I wish you joy and see you next time. Bye bye.